Let's Ruin It podcast, where we take your favorite pop culture media, put a legal spin on it, and like all lawyers, we ruin it. I am one of your hosts, Diana. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Jenny.
And I am Liz.
And it's a very exciting episode because it's our inaugural YouTube episode. So now, in addition to hearing our lovely voices, you get to see our lovely faces.
Welcome!
You still have the option of just listening to us.
Right. If this is too much
for you,
I
get
can't
it.
handle our faces.
But now you get to be graced with some facial reactions.
You may get the occasional eye roll from me.
Occasional, yes.
I mean,
Yes.
I definitely make faces. So if you like to be entertained in that way,
Now you get it. So congratulations. Thanks for joining us.
Congratulations, she said.
And today we are doing a very important film to, I guess, the law, because it's about a legal theory, but it's actually fun, and it's Double Jeopardy.
I like how you said it's a very important legal film.
It is very important. The whole movie
it's
is
not
premised.
up there with My Cousin Vinny. I got to premise
But
it
the
there.
entire premise of
that
the
one
movie
takes
is a legal theory.
It is. Double Jeopardy is a concept in the
whole
law.
thing.
But I think it's a very important legal film in the sense that no one should ever use it for legal advice.
Don't follow this film for legal advice in any capacity.
No.
Particularly the overall plot is completely wrong.
So convoluted.
Please
Let's
do not.
let's get into it.
Don't.
Tell us.
All right.
So bad.
This movie, Ashley Judd stars as a wife, a mother who is seemingly in an okay marriage and goes on a boat ride with her husband.
Her loving husband who surprises her with the sailing
Because she's an avid sailor.
Yes.
She loves sailing.
And loves this particular boat.
And it's very clear at the beginning, he does not. He is not a sailor. He doesn't supposedly enjoy sailing at all. It's her thing, and he surprises her.
And says, we can buy this boat and let's take it out on the water, see how you like it. And if you really like it, we will buy it. And such a romantic gesture. They have a lovely time on this boat.
They also have a really cute kid.
Yeah.
Who's premised, in the beginning.
Who's not on the boat.
No.
Yes.
But it is very much
cute.
featured.
Maddie.
Maddie's super cute.
And then they have a lovely time on this boat. They make love very sensually.
And you know what's not lovely? When he then frames her for murder.
And then he frames her for murder. But basically, she wakes
blood freaking everywhere.
blood everywhere. She wakes up in the middle of the night. There's blood
Covered
on her
in
robe.
blood. Yeah.
There's blood on the
On
bed.
her hands.
There are footprints in blood leading onto the deck.
Yep.
And there's a knife. And then she picks up
And
the
dumbass
knife.
picks it up.
Never
when
pick
the
up a
cops-
knife.
No.
Never pick up a knife. If
Right
you-
when the cops arrive. Ma'am, put down the knife.
Right. So the Coast Guard, whoever arrives and is basically just, you know what's going to happen. It looks like she's the murderer.
Just stare at the knife from afar, okay?
Yeah.
Don't ever pick up
it
the knife.
up. But I can understand that
Because she
was in
picked
shock.
it up and I went at her fingerprints are all over.
Absolutely.
That is the first
But at this
thing I
moment,
said.
her husband is missing. She doesn't know where he is. Presumably, he is dead, and she's scared. So I could see
in
if
shock.
you think that's she's in shock. She has no idea what's
Definitely
happening.
in shock.
It's the middle of the night, and but if you think that maybe there's like an intruder on the boat or some bad guy has gotten on your boat and attacked your husband,
you
you
need
might
to
want
defend-
to
Yeah.
take the knife for
Yeah.
that reason. But she's more acting out of confusion
Right.
and
Yeah.
shock.
Yeah.
Right.
And then right at that moment, the Coast Guard or whoever, they show up and they say, ma'am, put down the knife. The first legal issue I had on this was they are, first of all, very far away to even see that she has a knife.
That she's holding a knife.
Yes, but-
well, they have all these like
There was
lights
a big
on.
hype.
But they also don't know what's
Yeah.
happening on that
True.
boat because you later on find out that there's a recording of like a Mayday call
That her
the
husband recorded,
Yeah, said
planted.
I've been stabbed and all this stuff. He doesn't say my wife stabbed me. He says I've been stabbed.
Right.
So as far as they are concerned, there could be an intruder on this boat. There could be someone who's attacking the wife right now. So I thought it was a little presumptuous for them to say put down the knife and treat her automatically like she's the perpetrator.
To play devil's advocate, I think isn't that probably their method of doing things? They have to disarm everyone that they come across.
But
right?
they don't even say, is there anyone else on this boat with
Yeah.
you? Like, I mean, there could be someone literally attacking her or chasing her at that moment.
I guess that's true, but it's not like they're going to say, "Oh, okay, there's someone attacking you and chasing you. Go after them with that knife."
No, I know,
Like, they're
but
not
it
gonna
just
condone
it
that
seemed like
either.
right away. It's almost like
They assumed that she was
right. Like
the murderer.
rewatching this last night, I hadn't remembered most of the movie, and neither had my husband.
I
And
knew the big premise,
I
but it's been a long time since I'd seen it.
He even said, he's like, oh, maybe the husband like tipped them off that like, like it almost seemed like they came into the situation being like, this wife murdered her husband, and there was no reason to think that at that moment.
So she's arrested, she's tried for it very quickly,
but not arrested right away.
No, not right away.
Okay, so that's interesting that you say that because when they come back, the next scene that you see after that is she's standing on the shore. She's really concerned. They're doing a search. Have you found him? Are you looking everywhere? She's very much playing the concerned wife.
Right.
Like, where's my husband? The sheriff, who knows her, is like, no, we haven't found her. She starts hyperventilating, being really upset. He's trying to calm her down. And she hasn't been arrested up to this point. I got the impression that they got through the funeral, I guess, sort of, kind of.
Well, they declared him dead, but there was no body.
Right. So I don't know. It had been a while. It seems like.
Right. And then her like a friend who's her lawyer,
attorney friend. Right.
Yeah, he's the one who informs her. They're looking at you as the
And why are they looking at her? Because a few months before that, the husband took out upped his life insurance. They both did.
She was aware of it.
She was aware. She knew.
$2 million
life
insurance policy.
And can I just say, and so she says in her defense, she says he wanted us to, to be taken care of.
Anything happened.
And the lawyer was like, well, there's a difference between being taken care of and $2 million. And I would just want to say something. I know this is 1999, so 25 years
26.
ago.
Shut it.
26.
Shut it.
We're in 2025 now.
I've realized this was in a different century. I get it.
The fucking pain.
However, the premise, they are being set up as a very well-off and well-to-do family.
I don't think $2 million is so unreasonable.
We later learned that he was like in debt up to his ears, but $2 million, is that like so crazy for a wealthy, well-to-do family that's buying sailboats?
Yeah, if you can buy a sailboat, you need a $2 million life insurance policy.
Right.
I didn't think that was so egregious.
Right.
It should be noted. Yes.
I love when Josh puts up like little
our
tidbits.
producer's right on it. He
So
says $2 million in 1995 would be about $4 million.
Little over $4
million
Again,
in today's
if you
money.
have a very wealthy family, is it so unreasonable to think that the breadwinner, and he was, right? She was a stay-at-home mom. She wasn't working.
That's the impression I got.
That's the impression that we get,
Yeah.
that she's not working. So is it so unrealistic to think that he would get a $2 million or $4 million life insurance policy on his
I don't
life?
think that's unreasonable.
Right. But this is like the crux of
Why
the
was that like
prosecution's
indicative,
argument.
right? Indicative of like
motive.
I mean, the fact that they
that's all.
They
They
didn't
need a
find a
motive.
bot.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't
And
see
they
a lot
didn't
of the
find
trial. We saw a little bit of the trial,
Little
but not
bit.
a lot of it. It did seem like they didn't have as much to go on to convict her because, I mean, yes, she was on the boat, but I mean, think about like he would be able to overpower her. If this was premeditated because of life insurance, would she have been so sloppy? There's no body and nobody's been found. Like, I think that was a little bit.
I mean, except for her, what doesn't work for her, obviously, is that there are now no prints on the knife other than hers. She's the only one on the boat.
By the way, can I just throw out that was a lot of blood?
I
don't know where all of that came from. That was
couldn't
a
be
lot
from
of blood.
him, right?
No, but they must have tested the blood and seen that it's his,
Yeah,
right?
right.
I would
They
hope
would
they
have.
would
So,
have.
where did all that blood come from? How did he get off the boat? Like, they are in the middle of nowhere. Because there's a scene where he's like, we don't see any islands. Like, we're in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, I don't see any land.
And he claims he doesn't know where they are.
Right. And
I don't know how much of that was part of the setup.
they
because
never make it clear.
Yeah.
Like, later on, spoiler alert, he's alive.
And
we see him later in the movie.
And he frames her for it and fakes his death.
Right. But, like, I wanted a scene where he kind of explains how he pulled it off. Kind of like in Gone Girl.
Yes.
Like, I wanted to know, like,
Yes.
did Angie is the family friend who's taking care of the son and who is having an affair with the husband.
We
and
find
who
out later.
He ends up with her. And, did she maybe take a rowboat to, like, his boat and, like, get him...
A canoe.
Yeah, there's, like, footprints off the boat, off the side of the boat, but they never find his body. And so, how did he get off the boat?
Right, where is he keeping this, like, is he
The
swimming to
life
shore?
preservers were still on the boat, they say.
Yes.
Like, everything was still on the boat.
So to me, someone had to have come and picked him up.
Right.
And the
whether he
presumption is
arranged
Angie.
it or whatever, but I would think it was Angie because again, they always say 3 people can't keep a secret, right?
Right. Sure.
So like,
If you're gonna frame someone for murder, only one other person can be in on this plan.
Gone Girl did it. Amazing Amy did
Did it alone
perfectly.
one person. Don't tell another soul.
Yep.
I mean, she's the gold standard.
Well, she is amazing,
framing
Amy.
your
So.
spouse, of course. But where did all the blood come from? Like, that's a lot of blood. That's not superficial
So it's
cuts.
so funny because now that you say that, because I started thinking about it too. Now you got my brain whizzing, right?
Yeah.
I'm thinking if he really pre-planned this, he might have siphoned blood
Blood
off
from
himself
like
a
in
little
Gone
bit
Girl.
at a time, right? And had like a container
Yeah.
of it because that was a massive amount of
Yeah.
blood
That's a
that
lot
was
of
all
blood.
over.
And she's tried and convicted very quickly.
Wait, and
I want to know how the hell he had to have drugged her.
Yes, I
yeah,
think so.
I think so
Had to
because
have.
she was
For her
totally out of it.
For her to be asleep through all of
And they
that,
didn't test
have
her. Like,
blood
was there
on her
toxicology?
right. Blood on her hands, blood all over her, and she has no
and
clue.
she slept through all of it
No,
while
I
he's like
feel-
walking around mopping his blood up every day.
I feel
putting it all
like
over
they
the
should
place.
have tested to see if there was anything in her system.
Yeah.
I also, the bail hearing, because this was strange. She's basically informed by her lawyer after the fact that they denied bail, and he's like, oh, so we had the bail hearing, and you're not getting bail. It's like,
Yes.
that's not how that happens. You are in attendance at your
Of
bail
course.
hearing.
Yeah.
You're not like,
Yeah,
she's
I don't care
finding
what's-
everything out
granted,
like after the fact. She's
It's
just like,
Washington
oh, is this what's
State,
happening?
which is different state than ours, but I don't think in any state in
I
this
think you're-
union
yeah, I think
you are
it-
not
yeah.
allowed to appear at your bail hearing,
Right.
unless you waived it for some
Maybe,
reason.
but it
Why would
seems like
she?
she's like kept in the dark about every single part of this.
Yeah.
This was a lot of my issue with this movie, that she's kept in the dark about it, a lot of it. But then when it does come to light, she decides to take matters into her own hands and doesn't do
Oh yeah,
what
and
really
we
should
should
be
discuss
done.
this because
And
there's
we're
so
gonna
many
get
things that
to
she
it.
should have done.
Right.
So yes, bail hearing. No.
But so she then gets sentenced
Wait,
to
before
prison
that.
time. Yeah, but go ahead.
The lawyer tells her about the financial troubles.
Oh, yes.
That the husband was having, and he
Oh,
says,
yes.
and I rewound this and like typed it down.
Oh, and I wrote it down too.
Oh, really?
Because it was important. Yeah.
Two of his investors were suing him for embezzlement.
Right.
The bank has a lien on his personal properties, and
Two-
her,
I
her
wrote down
personal
two-
possessions.
on two buildings or something.
Yes.
Like
And
that.
on her personal possessions. Nick dying meant everything disappeared behind a corporate shield. That's what he says to her. Basically,
Yes.
if him dying, everything
Everything
gets
goes
protected.
away.
And basically, presumably, there's a $2 million payout.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see really how that works in terms of like everything disappears behind a corporate shield when also there's lien on her personal
Oh
possessions.
yeah, right. And also, why is there if it's a corporate thing? Why is
Right.
there a lien on her
If you
personal
have the
possessions?
corporate shield,
Mm-hmm.
then why would he say there's lien on his personal properties and her personal possessions?
Well, that's wrong.
Okay. Not that it's the biggest issue legally in
No,
this movie, but
they
it
just-
did
I think it
puzzle
just-
me.
And honestly, I think that would probably explain more of what she's saying. That's why he took out that
Right.
she says he wanted to make sure we were taken care of. So the $2 million would have theoretically replaced what would have been seized if
Yeah.
there was a lien on her personal effects, right?
Right.
So I don't know. The whole thing was a little.
I feel like she had a better defense than they're letting on because again, I don't know
Well,
that you can
because-
fully tie her to it.
And I said this to you the other day. I said
But
I
am
really hope.
wrong?
Like, the motive didn't even make sense,
I
like-
recalled when she talked about them taking out the life insurance policy. It wasn't just on him. She had one too.
yeah, I thought
They
so.
both had
right.
$2 million
I
policies.
said this to you the other day that I really hope they didn't have real lawyers consulting on this movie.
No,
Everything
they
is
couldn't have
wrong.
possibly. No,
Everything
they
is
couldn't
really
have
wrong.
possibly.
They like Wikipedia'd the law.
Yeah, you know what? That's in
I don't even know-
99. In 99,
I don't even know that they Wikipedia'd it. I think they just said, you know what, this is a really fun concept. And we
Yes.
don't care that it's not completely accurate.
We love the name Double Jeopardy
Yeah.
as the title of this movie.
Right.
Let's see if we can make this fit.
Yes.
And look, and
Yeah.
they did.
And they did.
And they
because
did.
It's great.
And-
It's a great
and
movie.
And we'll talk about this in great detail later. But what a piece of shit this guy is.
This guy is the worst.
Like,
Oh
why
my
couldn't he
God,
just?
worst.
Why couldn't he just fake his own death and she gets the life insurance
Oh, wait,
policy?
a tidbit from Josh. A person can die if they lose more than 40% of their blood volume.
Oh,
which is
see?
about 2 liters for the average adult. Dude, I'm going to say that was definitely more 2
I think so,
liters.
too.
Like, there was a lot
I
of
think
blood.
absolutely. I think
So-
that
There was a lot.
Yeah,
So
that-
I'm going to go with my theory of he siphoned it off
He must have.
over time.
Yeah.
And collected it
But
like,
like you said,
in a container.
He didn't have to make it look like a gruesome murder.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, if the whole purpose was I'm in financial trouble and
Yeah.
I need to like disappear
Mm-hmm.
and get like a payout, then I don't know. I suppose you'd make it look like an accidental death or something.
Well, at some point, when obviously this whole thing unravels and she confronts him, she tracks him down at the end of the movie. He says to her, "I never thought you'd actually get convicted." I mean, sir, that was the
Well,
point.
and,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
you made it
that
look like
to me
she's the
was
one
the
who did
best
it.
part of the movie where she said, "You are so full of shit."
Of course.
Right,
He
right,
pointed
right.
her. he wanted her to get convicted
Absolutely.
because if he fakes his own death and just goes on his merry way, he has to disappear and he then doesn't get any of the life insurance.
He could have made it look
money.
like an accident, like he fell off the side of it or like slipped off the side of the boat.
Right. But what
so
he
what
ended up
made it
doing-
more plausible was, let me get rid of my wife. She gets framed for my murder. She goes away. I then am hooking up and having an affair with, I guess the presumption is that that's her best friend at that time.
And then she gets custody of the child.
She's taking care of their son.
And because
she's very
because
close.
the $2 million goes to the son.
Right. She trusts this woman. And she's like, okay, I've now been convicted. My son needs somebody. I don't want him in the system.
Right.
My heart breaks for her.
I know, that was so sad.
That was the one thing. She didn't want her kid in the system. This woman who's been there for us, you take care of my son. You adopt my son. As soon as she said those words,
you knew it was trouble.
oh my God. The light bulb went off. I went, oh my God, you are so screwed.
I don't understand why she'd say you adopt my son. Like giving him guardianship. She didn't get life in prison without parole. Because as we see, she gets released after 6 years, which we'll talk about.
We'll
get to that.
There's so many things.
But like,
I'm trying to do it in order, but there's so much that you want to jump to.
At the point that she's saying adopt my son, that didn't make sense. If you know that you have possibility of parole after 6 years, then you wouldn't be saying adopt my son. Like, you're not giving up your son forever.
But as soon as she said that, I was like, that's it. It's all over with.
Well, and that's the thing. Maybe let's talk about the difference between a guardianship and an adoption.
Yes, right.
She says, please adopt my son because, like you said, he can't be in the system, and she hands over all rights. But the intention wasn't...
Because she's assuming, like she did the one visit, she brought the kid to see her in prison. She's assuming they're going to keep seeing me.
Like an
My
open
son
adoption.
is still going to know who I am.
But that could be accomplished with the guardianship.
It could. So
what's
you're
the adoption
The
for?
adoption really didn't serve much of a purpose.
Only works if you're like, I just got life in prison without parole.
Right.
Right.
That's it.
And I don't want my son to know that his mom is in prison for killing his father.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But clearly that wasn't...
But clearly they weren't keeping it from the kid.
Right. They brought the kid to visit in prison.
You're right. The adoption made no sense to me
it
either
made
from
sense
that point
at
of view.
all.
It made sense for the husband to steal the money, right? Because they're clearly the best friend and the husband are in on this from the start.
They're in cahoots.
Yeah,
right.
From the beginning.
From the beginning. We don't get that really, I don't think, until it comes out a little bit later in the wash. But they're in cahoots because she's like, there's the $2 million life insurance policy. It'll be in trust to take care of him. I got to say, Annabeth Gish played that sucker really good. It's not about the money.
Of course it's about the
she played that
money.
scene very well. Yeah.
So that went off without a hitch. She brought the kid for one visit, making her think all was well, and then poof, they disappeared.
Yes.
She has no idea where they've gone.
So my next question
what's
is,
going on?
Okay, obviously, an adoption would take a lot of time, right? Like, even if you're getting someone to sign off on the adoption and say,
I would think
the process takes a long time. Now,
it does, because
until he's fully adopted
I'm gonna assume,
right?
Like, okay, again, I'm assuming, but I can't imagine it's radically different in other states.
Sure.
But even here, you have to have a home inspection. You have to have fingerprinting and a background check done.
Yeah.
But
especially when a stranger is adopted.
But hold on, is that the same even if the biological parent chooses the adopted parent?
Yes, because the state still needs to make sure that the state has to sign off on it, even if the parents are consenting to the adoption.
Okay.
If they're legally giving up their rights,
but not
they can
only
do
consenting.
that, but that doesn't mean that the state doesn't still play a role. They're still going to, even in the step-parent adoption, when the parent is saying,
I married this
person. I want my spouse to be there.
There's still a process.
There is still a process. You're still doing a background check. They waive the home inspection because
you're living together right?
already. But they still do a background fingerprint check.
Of course.
So you're still doing that.
So there's
even
still
with
a long
step-parent.
process.
Yeah.
Now, I don't understand.
And those don't happen right away.
I don't understand. So it takes... Okay, it could take anywhere from a few months to a year to finalize. Okay.
Absolutely.
Now, they visit her in prison once and then disappear.
Right.
The fact that no one, like either her attorney or anyone, like even attorneys for the state, like, I mean, this child has disappeared off the face of the earth and has stopped, like, she can't even contact them. Like, is that, how does that
Why didn't she pick up the phone and call her lawyer?
That's the part I'm trying to figure out.
And say,
why
they've
not
disappeared.
call the lawyer?
They've disappeared.
Because presumably, like you said, this was an
They're
open
still
adoption.
But also,
not even just friends. Like, this is your lawyer. You've retained this lawyer's services. there is
But I
a
think
duty.
there was a little bit more to it because she knew him.
Right.
He was her friend,
But he's also,
and
he
then was her
can't just
lawyer.
like wave anything off. Like,
Right.
he still has a duty. He's still under retainer.
Right.
Like, he has ethical obligations to follow up on, hey, my son has disappeared, and the woman that I've given, like, custody to
Find them.
is completely evading my like phone call and like has just like they've disappeared.
Right.
No one looks into this. The state would look into this because now it's a missing child.
Right.
Yes.
That's
Right.
what I didn't understand how that wasn't an issue.
The only reason I would think that they wouldn't look into it is if the adoption was final and she had now all legal rights, which is what I assumed happened, but it was
wouldn't
way
there
too
still
fast.
be a welfare issue
It
there?
was way
Because,
too
like,
fast.
Even if it's like you just know that someone has disappeared,
But
like,
that
and it's
wasn't-
not your own child anymore.
She doesn't have any legal rights to him, presumably.
But hold on, but it wasn't the
It all
intention.
went through.
Yeah, but that wasn't the intention. The intention wasn't a closed adoption. She was bringing the kid there.
We're assuming that. We don't know that.
I
I mean, it
But
must have been an
technically-
open
but
adoption. She expected
technically,
to be seeing him
maybe,
and got like freaked out
but
that she
she
wasn't.
still signed her rights over to this
But
other
can't you
woman.
sign it all? If you sign over rights, right? If you are doing an open adoption, wouldn't that be a condition of it that I get to still see this? Like, if I'm doing an
depends
open
on-
adoption,
I think it
then
depends
that's
on
Usually,
the
it
terms.
depends
the other
on what the
side.
terms of the open adoption are, and you
Right.
put
Right,
those
but
in
if
writing.
you
It's
put-
like a contract.
Right,
like
so I
anything
assume
else.
that she would have put that in writing
But
for the
she's
adoption.
a felon in prison.
Right.
What felon is going to sue on the contract?
But like,
who's
someone
doing this?
follow up with
well,
this.
but this is why. But she had a lawyer. What do you mean? Who's doing
She had a
this?
lawyer.
She should
Where
do
is this
this.
lawyer thereafter? After,
But
also-
after the conviction, we never see
She
the
also,
lawyer.
I know.
She also very quickly realizes that she's been framed and he's alive because she does track down the best friend.
Oh, and
Which can we talk
yes,
about?
can we talk about how that happened?
So-
Because
the
the
best
nuggets
friend,
of information that she gets throughout this movie are so ridiculously
Implausible,
convenient,
yeah.
implausible.
So first of all,
impossible.
She calls like the place of employment for, I believe, for
and
Angie.
pretends to be Angie.
But
and says, "Hey, I moved, and I know I'm supposed to be getting my checks, but I haven't been getting them. What address do you have on file? I just want to make
and then
sure."
she gives the address. Now that's all. You can dupe someone. That's fine. But if you're calling from prison,
Yes.
then the person who picks up gets a message that says you are receiving a phone call from an inmate
Number, yada,
number
yada,
blah,
yada.
blah, in
Right.
this particular prison.
Right.
So that doesn't happen when she calls the employer, and then when she does call Angie because she has tracked down that information, again, she like catches her off guard because the idea is an inmate can't just like call you off
right.
guard. Like you get a message saying this is who's calling you from a prison,
Right.
So you're not like, ooh, they
So
found
they
me.
conveniently
She would have been able to
they
be like, no.
conveniently disregarded the fact
Do
that
you
there
want
would
to
be a
accept
message.
this call? I think
Right.
they say like, do you want to accept this call? It's like a collect call.
Right.
So
I've actually
Angie,
had that happen to me once and I declined.
Oh no, who was trying to find you from prison?
I have no idea.
Well,
who it
was
watch
it an
yourself.
ex-boyfriend?
I think it was just random people. You
Oh
know
my
how
God.
they just
No, I
random
No, I
calls
No, I
don't.
don't know that.
Yeah.
Random people from
It
prison
was
are not
not
calling
somebody
you
I knew.
randomly.
Not somebody
What?
I knew.
What? No, I don't think that's a thing.
It's a
I
thing.
think you should follow up on that. But
I don't think that's. I
I
agree
don't. No
with
one's
Diana.
prank calling from prison.
What are you saying?
That's not a trend.
Oh, I think it might be.
I don't think so.
I think they're trying to get.
I think you should talk to someone.
Are you pen pals with someone?
No, this was a very long time ago. And no.
Yeah.
I don't
Were
think
you
so.
pen pals with someone?
Negative.
I don't know.
I don't write people in
I don't know
prison.
how I feel about you being
I'm
on
not
this
one of those.
YouTube
I'm
thing
not one of
now.
those groupies. No.
I don't know.
The point
So like a
is,
Menendez brother?
guys,
Okay.
Liz has
All
things
right.
to tell us. Maybe
I
she
know.
should tell
I'm
us
nervous for Liz now.
when we're not
Nah.
recording.
But yeah, so that didn't happen, and that's like as soon as it happened, like we
This-
paused it and we're like, what? They usually have a recording.
But this happens early on into her sentencing.
Yeah.
She hasn't made friends with the other inmates yet. She is still like getting her bearings, and she talks to him on the phone. She talks to the boy on the phone.
And then he says, "Daddy," because
the husband walks into the room, and he says, "Oh, hi, Daddy," and then that's
And
when
then
they disconnect
she starts
the call.
yelling, "Nick, Nick, Nick," and he pulls the phone out of
And
the-
so
Right.
she realizes that Nick is alive.
And
She-
instead of calling
Her
her lawyer,
Which is exactly what I'm like. What are
like
you doing?
rename
Yeah.
the movie "Call Your Lawyer."
Right.
Like
Yes.
that's it. That is like the
Right.
overarching
like,
theme.
Hello, my husband who's supposedly dead is
Yes.
alive.
Yes.
she calls the insurance company.
Yeah.
The insurance
She
company.
did. Right. She called like
Okay.
right. Like
Yeah.
you presume it's like one of those people that's like, well, do you have an address? No, then I can't help you. Like
Right.
really?
Also, now this also
Who's
struck
gonna
me.
listen to her at the insurance
No,
company?
no, no. But this struck me as odd. the insurance company would absolutely look into something like that. If you're calling an insurance company and saying,
And
hey,
saying
you
there was
paid out
fraud.
$2 million
Yeah.
and my husband is actually alive, like his body was never found, and I just heard his voice on the phone, he's alive, here's the address I have for him, they would absolutely look into that.
Do you think they would look into it? But
Yes.
she's calling.
They don't want to lose any, like, that kind of money.
know, but
like,
I get it,
insurance
but I
fraud
don't
is
think she's
important.
calling a customer service and it's some schmoo on the phone.
Yeah.
And no
I
one's
think
gonna
they'd open
find
an
out about
investigation.
it.
I think insurance companies care about that stuff.
I think if she called her lawyer.
Oh, and the lawyer called, sure, like even
I think-
better.
Yeah, but I think one of the inmates after that, it says, really, who's listening to you when you're in
But
prison?
you know who they
No one
listen to?
pays
They listen to
attention.
your lawyer.
Right.
If she had
Right.
called her lawyer and said,
Right.
I know it sounds crazy, here's what I know, here's what I heard, and then he
Put it in
calls
a
the insurance
letter.
company and says, either calls or writes a letter and says, listen, there's reason to believe that this guy's actually alive. They never found his body.
Right.
He was just a missing person.
Right.
But
and you
also-
paid out this
Right.
money.
But also, it took her 2 calls from prison to track him down. The lawyer could have easily tracked her down. I mean, by that point, they disconnected the number and presumably moved to the next
But, like,
location.
he could have found them. Like,
Absolutely.
easily. And he, like, knows what the guy looks like. He could have seen him and just said, yep, that's Nick.
She continued to use the same Angie, the friend. They changed their name when they moved to the new location, but she continued to use the same social security number. That's how she found her. So
Not that hard. Not that hard to
it
find.
wasn't that hard. Why isn't she calling her lawyer and saying, "Hey, not only are you my lawyer, but you're my friend, and you said you didn't believe me that I did this. So look into it. Hire
I don't
a private
understand how she never
investigator."
called him about
Well,
this.
then there wouldn't be
Because,
a movie.
guys, there's no movie then.
But it's infuriating.
and hold on. And
It's
instead
infuriating.
instead of doing that, instead of figuring out how to get out
She
of jail,
trains herself. Like,
She
okay,
runs
you know what's
laps.
First of
easier?
all, she was like a badass.
Oh my God.
She was like
Running
J-Lo
and doing, like,
what was that
Enough.
movie?
Enough,
yes.
yeah.
Love that movie.
She was like,
yeah.
weight training.
She's like, I'm gonna kick his ass.
Oh my God,
when I get out.
she became like so fit and like
well,
that's way harder than just calling your lawyer. Like all that work you put in, call your lawyer. Like
Okay, so wait,
they
let's
just needed
get to
that,
my favorite
No, but
part.
they needed that montage.
They
like
did.
they
It
needed
was
that
great.
like
But
Eye
need
of
to
the
get,
Tiger.
I need
Oh, I
to get
loved
to
it.
my
I
favorite
loved it.
part with the jailhouse lawyering people.
Oh, I love that.
Do
Because
it.
my favorite trope in these movies is the jailhouse lawyer who knows it all.
The armchair expert.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Hold on a minute. She says she used to be a lawyer, but murder
In
will get
another
you
life.
disbarred.
Yeah,
Right.
Murder does get you disbarred.
amazing.
That is true.
Isn't it?
That they got that right.
Good advice,
Lawyer
guys.
does get you disbarred.
Good
Murder,
advice,
murder
guys.
gets you disbarred.
The one thing they got
The
right.
one thing they got right is if you murder someone or get convicted for
You
murder,
will likely
you will
get
lose your
Supposedly-
license to practice law.
Supposedly, this former lawyer who is now in prison says to her, well, you've already been convicted of murdering your husband. So you could go up to him in Times Square, shoot him in the face, and there's nothing
terrible lesson to
they
teach
can
America.
do about it.
That's not
People,
true.
Does not
look
work.
at me right here. There is something they can do about it because that is not the definition of double
Josh,
jeopardy.
zoom in on her face as she says it. She's
Like,
so
there needs to be sound
passionate.
effects for this part.
Wah,
Like,
wah. That
and
was not.
I hope we have like text on the screen that just like explains that is not the doctrine of
Joshua,
we
do
should
me
have
a
it-
favor. Pull up Double Jeopardy because I googled
We
this
should
thing
have it
last
flashing
night.
on the screen.
The
Not
actual
true.
definition.
It is that the Fifth Amendment protects
Right.
you from being tried twice for the same crime. However, the principle applies to being retried for the same crime in court. Committing an actual murder, even after being falsely convicted of the same person's murder, would still be a separate criminal act and would lead to new charges.
Now, the other thing that further complicates it when I was researching it too is you are not barred from being convicted for the same crime in different jurisdictions.
Exactly.
So she was convicted in Washington State, and
And
if
then-
she shot him, for example, in
In-
Times Square
yeah.
in New York,
Uh-huh.
New York could prosecute
Yep.
her for shooting him and
Liz
killing
is
him there.
so mad
Yep,
about
Yep.
this.
Yep.
I'm infuriated, people.
She's so mad.
See,
now
we've got
multiple punishment. Okay.
Never mind the fact.
she's
way
still going.
spoiler alert. I'm jumping ahead.
She's still
she
going.
ultimately confronts him in New Orleans, in
New Orleans.
Louisiana, which is yet another state.
All right.
So had she, which she does shoot him in Louisiana, she could have been convicted there.
Absolutely.
So basically, the double jeopardy clause, just note this, it protects you against a second prosecution after an acquittal. So you're acquitted, they can't be like, no, now we want to do it again.
Right.
A second prosecution after a conviction, and multiple punishments for the same offense. That's it.
But these are different offenses.
These are different offenses.
And it's right. Double jeopardy doesn't apply when different governments, like the state and the federal, are prosecuting the case. So, and a case can also be reopened if new evidence is discovered and there was a fundamental defect in the previous
guys,
proceedings.
we've just ruined the entire premise of this whole movie.
Correct.
Right?
It is wrong. It is so wrong.
So
her conviction in Washington State would be overturned. Like it would be because clearly she didn't kill him, but there'd be a new murder charge for killing him in New Orleans,
in the new state,
in in a completely different circumstance.
If you don't take anything from this podcast other than this one thing, do not commit murder twice.
Yeah, just don't do it. Just don't.
That's it.
You will not be protected. Double jeopardy will not apply. This
even
movie
if it is the same person,
is leading people astray.
And by the way, he had different names.
Yeah.
She was prosecuted for murdering Nick Parsons in Washington.
he was Senor Devereaux.
But it doesn't matter because that's not really his name.
I know,
doesn't matter.
I know.
But yeah, just don't kill him.
Let's talk about the identity theft, shall we?
Yes, go.
Let's talk
Let's
about
do it.
that, okay? Because he is partaking of identity theft.
Yes.
She is partaking of identity theft.
Sure.
When she impersonates Angie to
Twice.
try and get twice to get this information and track them down. So there's identity theft abounding in this movie.
Yes.
Okay. Let's also talk about the rampant property destruction.
Oh my God.
So many things. Okay, so rather than she gets out on parole after 6 years.
Which, okay.
We have to
Let's talk about this.
Murder conviction.
And presumably this was murder one. This would be murder one.
It was a conditional parole.
But wait, well, let's talk about it. Was it murder one or murder two?
If they're saying that it's based on it was premeditated because of the insurance policy, she planned this.
Right.
It
So
wasn't
this
like
is-
a heat of passion or anything like that.
Right. So not manslaughter.
Not manslaughter.
So let's tell everyone the difference, right? So murder one is when you have murder in the first degree, when you have premeditated murder. Like you planned this out, you stabbed him, you sliced
You had a
his throat,
motive
you
going
had a
into
motive,
it. Yes.
You did everything you could to get rid of this person. Murder in the second degree, murder two is where it was not premeditated. Maybe it was like a
heat of passion,
crime of passion.
or kind of like
You
maybe a
walk in-
self-defense, but not fully
Maybe
self-defense.
kind of- yeah,
the
something.
example that we got in law school was if you walk in on your spouse having an affair and you kill your spouse or you kill
And
the,
you see red.
and you see
it's-
red.
Yeah, like
right.
that.
So that's
Or like
murder
the
in
ending of
second.
Seven, the movie Seven. That's not murder one.
That's
Can
a
I just-
spoiler alert.
Sorry,
Dude,
what's in the
I
box?
love that.
Gwyneth's head.
movie.
It was Gwyneth's head.
I know. What's
Oh,
in the
Guys,
box?
we
let
ruined
us know
it.
if you
What's
want
in
to
the
see because
box?
I love
Wait, no,
Seven.
I would
hold
love
on.
to know
I've
that
never
one.
seen Seven.
Oh,
Then you already know the ending.
I know the ending, but that's
And
why
now everyone else does too.
you guys will just tell it to me because I'm not sure I can watch
Well,
it.
Such a good
spoiler
movie.
alert, it's not murder one.
It's-
Such a good.
In any case,
Anywho.
but then there's manslaughter. That's like lesser charges.
Right.
But based on how the prosecution is
Like the entire scene in the courtroom, like
courtroom.
based on how they're positioning this entire case.
she's got motive.
Yeah.
She premeditated
She
it.
takes
Yeah.
him into the middle of the ocean and
Dumps
kills him
his
there.
body.
Although I
and
will
all
say
this.
it was largely a circumstantial case because there was no actual body.
Sure.
No body.
Right.
Sure. But they declared him dead.
They
so-
did, although I mean
They
honestly,
just don't have the evidence.
my recollection is it takes like upwards of 7 years for someone to be declared dead.
Yes.
So it
Yes.
happened
That happened
really
so fast.
really fast, kind of
Declared
like
within
the
days.
miraculously
Days.
quick adoption, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that didn't make sense either.
So
Right.
she goes away and she's convicted for, again, what we presume is murder one. Murder one is like 20 years minimum in Washington
I would
State.
think so.
I
Yeah.
believe we looked it up
before
right
the
before.
possibility of parole.
Again, we are not attorneys in Washington State.
Right.
But I believe it was 20 years.
It was 20
without-
up to max like life in
Right,
prison.
correct.
And it did say that the average sentence was I think 10 to 16 years or something
Okay.
like
Well,
that.
that was for murder two.
No, that was murder two.
Was it murder?
That was murder two.
Murder one is never less than like 20 or 30 years. What is it?
Yeah,
a
there
minimum
is.
of 20 years and a maximum of life in prison.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like,
All right.
and it's never less than 20 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And she gets out on parole in 6 years.
In 6 years, she
What?
gets out on
What?
parole.
What?
The lessons they are teaching America.
I don't care how
Irresponsible.
conditional the parole is.
I know.
6
Does not
years?
matter, yeah.
And
No.
again, instead of calling her lawyer, as soon as she finds out,
Right.
she decides she's going to train hard. This chick tells her,
Do a bunch of pull-ups.
do a bunch of pull-ups, go kill him for real, and you'll be golden.
Right.
And trains her on what to say when she goes in front of the parole officer.
That part worked.
Actually, that part worked. I was down
But
with that.
hold on a minute. In order for that part to work, she took the blame. She admitted to killing him.
That is true.
Yeah.
And so she is released into a halfway house, basically.
Pretty much.
And
Right?
Tommy Lee Jones
Okay, am I the only one, because I made the comment out loud, was I the only one that found it super fucking weird that Tommy Lee Jones is in charge of all of these women
Right. You would,
like,
because
parolees?
because that was weird. You'd think there'd be like maybe a
woman?
female, right?
You would
'Cause
think
it's
a
only
house
women. It's only
full of
women, and
women.
and
he's in charge.
That was strange. That was strange.
And again, so I guess
And we find out, this one hurt my soul even more. He's a former law professor.
I know.
A former law professor who gives her the same flippin' advice.
much later.
Yeah, later. But still, backs up the Double Jeopardy
And I also want to point
insanity.
out, she is now out of prison, and still the child is being withheld from her.
Right.
Are you allowed to just withhold someone's child, like when you're out
Again,
of prison?
it depends on the
She
terms
gave
of the
up her
adoption.
rights.
But like, we don't
That was
even
the-
know whether like
we
the
don't.
adoption
But
is
that was the premise
through.
that I was hanging my hat on.
But
was
again,
she gave up her rights.
now she's out. Why doesn't she again call the
Oh my
lawyer?
God, just
Right.
call your
and
lawyer.
say, I want to see my
I
son
know,
now.
or I know he's alive. Let's try. Figure this out. Investigate.
Her lawyer
Do
knows him.
something.
Her lawyer knows the husband. Like it's
Right.
like,
No,
hey, Nick is
she-
alive. You know what he looks like.
Right.
He's
No,
out there.
because
Instead,
now-
we're going to get to my example number 1 of aiding and abetting. She escapes.
We have to talk about the escape.
We do have to
thing.
talk about the escape. But she goes home. And I'm like, wait a minute. She went home? They're going to find her for sure. Okay. But she goes home long enough to hit up her mother
Like on a farm.
for the cash that she buried in the tomatoes.
Right. There's always money in tomatoes.
Right. I love
like
that.
there's always
line.
money in
That
the
was
banana stand,
That was
you know?
an amazing line.
Yeah, I liked it.
But like, so she takes a wad of cash
And
from
a
her
truck
mom.
from her mom, right? Is that her mom's truck?
I
we
wasn't
don't know.
sure
We
about
don't
that,
know.
or if she bought it cash with the money that she
Aren't
gave
her,
her.
aren't her
something.
parents? Her
But
parents' house is going to be the first place that the authorities go
Unless
to.
they
it's like
hid
she
it
hasn't
from-
like been
Yeah.
home in like 20 years. She's
Doesn't
not
matter.
close with
Doesn't
them. I don't know.
matter.
Yeah,
It's
but
still-
that was
They're like in the
that was a
boonies.
little weirdo.
We have to
And they
rewind.
hid it from the father.
Yeah, the father went
She
out.
was like, "Oh, he's
He's
wherever,
out, whatever.
But she aided and abetted
We have to
Yeah.
rewind. How did she get to her mother's? We have to rewind. So
to the escape.
To the escape.
Okay.
Why is she even escaping? So
Tommy Lee Jones is
she
so
goes
good.
back
good.
to try to track down Angie. And she breaks into the school where Angie used to work. Like, breaks a window.
Which, by the way, duh.
Like, what are you doing? Lady, what are you doing?
You should slip in during the day. I
Right.
thought she would do that, like when the
What was-
headmistress like walks away,
What was her plan?
just to get a piece of paper.
I didn't understand the point, though. Did you guys get the impression Angie wasn't still working there? I was so confused.
Well, I guess it's like
She was just
She
trying to
had
track.
already called from prison, found out she was living in San Francisco. Why would you go back to
I
that
think she
got
wanted a
place?
social security number.
She got her social security number.
Is that what it was?
It's
Yeah.
employee
Okay.
records.
Thank
She got
you.
the social
Because I'm
security
like,
number.
why are we going back for an old address that is no longer valid?
Right.
But like, if I were her, I would have like slipped in like during the day or something, like because she was talking just fine with like the headmistress,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And she was just like, "I'm so sorry, I can't help you."
Right, right.
But she
Broken
wasn't
at
like,
night.
"Oh my God, you can't be here."
But
Right.
also, she has a curfew at the halfway house.
Yes.
And
So she's
she
like
hears-
purposely knowing she's just like going under.
Right. And her plan is I have to get to my son. No matter what, I have to get to my son. Commendable? Yes.
Great.
However, again, what's the plan?
Lawyer.
She's now on the run.
However, her amazing peak physical fitness allowed
I
her.
felt like this whole scene of
allowed
like
her to
after
outrun
she like when
the
the
police
cops
up
are
the
like
sand dunes.
yeah, and like I think it was like
was
to
amazing.
showcase how physically fit she is because she's like
was fabulous.
she jumps a fence
That was
and then the
that was
cops couldn't do
planned.
it because it's like
Absolutely
showing she
intentional.
jumps off like a roof, lands
Yep.
just fine. The
Yep.
other guy like basically
Yep.
breaks himself.
Yep.
Also, they get into a huge car accident.
They
the
do.
cops, like
Yes.
the car
Car
rolled.
flips.
They rolled on the dunes.
And then
Yep.
they just like crawl out of the car and continue chasing her. I'm like,
Right.
how are you guys like not a little bit
How are you
and
okay?
almost caught her.
almost
Yes.
and then caught her? They did catch her.
Well, so they did catch her. They called Tommy Lee Jones to come and get her because she's
but now it's
arrested.
like on an island, I guess.
And so he
Tybee
basically
Island, I think it was.
Whitby, Whitby
yeah.
Island.
Okay.
So he basically the assumption is because he says one strike and you're out. This is her one strike.
And we see that happen before with like some other girl who's like turning tricks.
Turning tricks, correct. And so they have to get back on a ferry in order to go back to the mainland, and he handcuffs her inside the car and goes to drink some coffee. And
Stupid.
She then proceeds to escape.
Crash.
The stupidest part was he left the keys in the ignition.
That's what I couldn't figure out.
What amateur hour?
So she's handcuffed. Her arm is handcuffed to the outside of the door.
So it's hanging out.
She decides to put the car into reverse to try to slam the car against
just to keep breaking, to break the handle off. And so she has to keep going back and forth, and she's like literally hitting other cars.
Yeah, in the meantime, whacking other cars.
How does no one notice?
Knock the little red car into the ocean.
Yes.
No one
notices. Like, you're hearing a car crash against other cars and the boat is filled with people who are outside like sightseeing.
I can't.
And no one is like, hey, does anyone else hear a car crashing into another car?
Causes so much damage. He finally, out of the corner of his eye, sees that she's trying to like finagle this like door handle, and he goes racing down there, and
he gets into the car.
But it's too late, and she slams on the gas.
Yep, and they go off the back of the ferry, crash into the
And then
ocean.
he has like no choice but to like unlock her handcuff.
Right.
And then she swims off. Peak physical shape.
Not before getting a hold of his gun, because they're now in the water. She grabs a hold of his gun.
She did.
And slams him Amy Fisher style into his head.
And then somehow nobody sees like where she ends up or like gets to her. Like she's just, it's like no one sees it.
And so rightfully
they fished him out with the
and then they were like
preserver, and then she took off. You see her on the beach.
Yeah,
rightfully
she swims to shore.
He's about to lose his job because he left the keys in the ignition.
She got his gun.
Right. She escaped. So he's about to lose his job. And yet, no one is looking for this escaped parolee.
Well, he is.
Only him, though. No one else.
No one else.
Wouldn't there be a manhunt?
Well,
of course.
I got the impression there was an APB. There was a wanted thing out for her.
I get. No, but it's
not
him.
really.
He's the one.
He's the one who did it.
Handing out flyers.
Yes.
I thought it came across the wire.
I don't know.
From
That's
him,
what
I thought.
Seemed to me, it was across the wire.
The guy in New Orleans is like, there's a guy here who's like passing out these flyers. Like it seems like it's all just Tommy Lee Jones who's like acting solo on this mission.
Why isn't Nancy Grace doing a show about this?
Because when he calls
Nancy,
like,
what's up?
When he calls the precinct to be like, I need you to pull up like a driver's license for me, and he wants Nick Parsons' driver's license. They're like, you better come back here. Like, stop with this. Like, they just
because you're suspended.
No one else cares about finding Ashley Judd.
And he wants to effectively clear his name because she escaped on his watch.
Course.
Right? So he just wants to bring her back.
Yeah.
But okay, ma'am, I understand that you're now like you're out for blood and you want to kill your husband and this double jeopardy thing. You have almost killed. I mean, I would think attempted murder.
Now it's attempted murder.
Wait, but now I want to come back for one quick second. Do you really think that her motivation was still to kill him?
No, I think it was to get the son.
It was just to get the kid, right?
Yeah.
That's what I think too.
Yeah.
I don't
For
think
a
the
while
motivation...
it was only once like Nick started playing, and we'll get to this, but when he starts playing games with her and like attacks her in the...
That's when she's like, I got to get rid of you.
Right. And attacks her in the cemetery, like that whole thing.
Yes.
Right.
Up until that, I think she just wanted her son.
Her son, yeah.
But yeah, at this point, even... At the end of the
she's
movie,
now attempted murder.
Even if they're like, fine, we're gonna let this whole double jeopardy thing, like,
destruction of property.
Even if she's not like,
attempted murder.
convicted of the murder of Nick,
we find out he's alive, right?
All right.
Yeah.
And she's like not convicted anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
But she's just destroyed all of this stuff.
So much property damage. And also attempted murder
Attempted
of
murder.
like a
Law enforcement.
Stole the officer's gun because that's also a charge.
But also, like she's the one who drives the car that he's in off of this boat into the water. Like that's an attempted murder.
Of course.
And I mean, there's other things that happen thereafter because she's in the truck
At the very
and she's
least,
like slamming into other cars.
Reckless endangerment.
Yeah,
of course.
Because there's like a later scene where she's in the truck and she's just like careening down down the way and just like she destroys his car outside of the art gallery.
The gallery. Right.
Yeah.
More insurance.
But
just like slams into it multiple times.
Yep.
I just don't understand a lot of things about this movie.
Continue, yes.
So number one, no one is looking for her. But also, how does no one know what Nick Parsons looks like? Again, this is 1999. So I understand it's a different century. It's a
like
different
no
time.
Facebook, fine.
Okay, but hold on a minute.
Did you check out the weird old looking computer in the
so
library?
Yeah, well, that's what they had in 1999.
so
in
cool.
fact.
Oh my
Listen,
God.
what year was John Benet Ramsey? You will know this off the top of your head.
Oh my God, I should know this.
Diana's obsessed with
in the
John
90s,
Benet.
right?
Early
97,
90s.
No.
It was early
No,
90s.
it wasn't early.
In any case, it was in the 90s.
I'm embarrassed to not say this off the top of my head.
You should be, considering you have like Google alerts for anything John Benet Ramsey.
Oh my goodness.
Because it feels like it was just yesterday. 96.
96.
Yeah,
All right.
I thought 97.
Everyone,
because it was December 26, 96.
I would say everyone in America, maybe even the world, knew what John Benet Ramsey looked like. Right?
Anyone who's murdered, like this guy, this prominent like business guy from Washington State was murdered, and you're saying no one knows what he looks like? And
enough that he can make a life for himself in San Francisco.
And be another prominent
in Louisiana.
Figure. He was like a prominent figure.
Okay, no, wait. Let's go into the intervening crime, because she goes, after she escapes in the truck, she goes to another dealership, pretends that she's buying a car as Angie. And gets
an address.
The current address, which is in Colorado.
Yeah. That's right.
So then she goes to Colorado, tracks them down there. She thinks they're at this house. The kid who answers the door.
Isn't she on a flight? Doesn't she get on an airplane?
She did get on a flight.
She, who's a parolee, even if they don't know that she's
a convicted felon.
Convicted felon who's out on conditional parole, and even if they don't know that she's now like escaped parole, let's say they don't know that, I don't think she's allowed to just like
hop on a flight,
get on a flight to a different state. Like, I know it's like pre 9/11, but like you still have to show an ID.
You do, and wouldn't you get flagged, because she certainly wasn't allowed to leave the state, right?
Oh yeah.
So like, wouldn't she
So
have
how
gotten
is she
flagged?
just like sleeping on an airplane?
She's just like,
I didn't understand that.
no care in the world.
Nope.
But before you get to what I know you're going to talk about, the intervening crime.
Yeah.
How does she track that address down in Colorado? She gets Angie's social security number, and she pretends to want to go buy a car.
She pretends to buy a car in Angie's name, so there's identity theft
What
there.
we then learn when she gets to Colorado is that
Angie died.
That Angie died, right.
There
because
was an explosion.
They answer the door. The kid that answers the door, she thinks it's her son, is not her son.
It's a new family
that
living
family's
there.
not there. Oh, but the old lady has been
Lived
here
there for 40 years.
Whatever, right. So she's going to know. So she goes to talk to the old lady. Oh, so tragic. That woman
there was
died.
a gas explosion.
So she goes and she
4
finds
years
the
ago.
article.
4 years ago.
Four
so
years
now
ago,
what
there's
I'm
a gas
wondering
explosion.
is
How is
why?
her social security card still active? Her
a really
social
good
security
question.
number.
That's a really good
when the
point.
guy at the car dealership ran the
like, all good.
background check, all
But
good.
her name
Shouldn't
was
have said deceased.
Angela Ryder.
But it was the same social security number. Should it not have said deceased?
It should have. But
right?
you would also get the impression then that they've changed their name again, right? So he was going by Ryder at that point.
Yes.
The husband, her and her.
And he changed his first name as well. She was still Angela. But
I don't know what it was. But,
Simon.
oh, was it Simon?
Simon.
That's right.
Oh.
You're right. Simon.
But yeah,
So he was going by Simon
and we don't
Ryder.
really know why he killed Angie.
Presumably because she
Other
got
than
him
I'm
away
thinking
and collecting the money.
she wasn't useful anymore, and he wanted the money for himself. So
And then, by the way, he didn't even keep the kid, right? He sent the kid off to boarding school in Georgia.
That's true.
right.
So his whole
But why did they even leave Colorado? Like they left San Francisco because they got the phone call.
I think he took care of Angie and left to start a new identity.
But like they already had a new identity in Colorado, having left San Francisco.
I just think that Angie had served her purpose, and he didn't need her anymore.
But that's like so sloppy. Like you're just killing, and like that's just putting the spotlight on you again.
But it was,
Except
it was
not.
a different name. It was an accidental death. It
Sure.
wasn't ruled a homicide. It was an explosion.
Yeah.
And he and the son weren't there. So he triggered it enough that it exploded on its own without them being there.
Sure.
They found it to be accidental. Tragedy. Okay. Then they move. They move down to New Orleans. Now, interesting. The way she tracked that down
Was through paintings.
she saw the picture of that stupid Kandinsky.
Oh,
yeah.
He still had the Kandinsky paintings. So then, coincidentally, as she's reading this article, she sees, art gallery across the street. Let me go and see what's going on with this Kandinsky. So she goes in there and is sweet-talking this guy at the gallery and saying...
And it's not that the gallery had the Kandinsky.
No.
He had like access to like art files.
Some database, which, okay, according to my husband, who's an archivist, there's no way all that provenance information would have been...
Like who actually bought it.
Oh, really?
And
even with prominent
there's
works?
no reason for that to have been on that computer and accessible by all of those people.
Really?
Yeah, that's what he says.
I mean, also, if you're thinking, if you're the husband and you have been doing all of these shady things for many years, wouldn't you want to be like as anonymous as possible?
Yeah.
And not only did he not buy the painting anonymously, but he also he's this, like you said, this prominent person. He's front and center. He's not keeping a low profile.
No, he goes out to New Orleans and becomes like the king of New Orleans.
Well, it was
How does no one recognize him?
I had this debate with my husband last night because I'm like, she got out on parole, and they have no idea that she's out on parole.
Well, how would he know?
But that's what
he's
he was
supposed to be
saying.
dead.
He's supposed to be dead. She didn't have ties with the kid anymore, so there really is no requirement to notify them that she's been released.
No, although the question is, if Angie is dead, and Angie was the
who has
custody of the kid
now? Right, because he's dead. He's not a person. Like, he doesn't have a social security number.
And now Angie is dead.
So, like, wouldn't the kid be like the custody of the state? Yeah, ward of the
I don't know.
Like,
well, and maybe that's why he just left. He left and started over with this new name.
but again, how do you even get like this child into like a boarding school? Like, these all require you to have social security numbers and identities.
Money.
Like his kid,
I mean,
money.
I guess.
That's all I'm going to say.
Money.
Money.
Yeah.
He was some highfalutin, like I'm Mr. Devereaux now.
We're
I have all
uncovering-
this money. No one's questioning it. He doesn't
But it's
exist.
just like none of this happens without social security numbers. You don't like medical care, like anything.
Look, we have uncovered a lot of plot holes in this movie. Ashley Judd, Tommy Lee Jones, please come on our podcast to discuss this with us.
I'm sure they would agree
We'd-
that there's a lot
We'd
of
love
plot
to.
holes.
We'd love to hear.
In
that.
Can
this
we also
movie.
talk about, while Tommy Lee Jones is on her case, first of all, he seems to always know her next step and like follows her
Right.
next step
Because he's
perfectly.
just that good.
Right.
Look, he fights aliens. All right.
Right, he does
He
fight
can. He can track down Ashley.
Like,
Judd.
I'm sorry,
literally
he
sees
was
her
a
truck.
He
He sees
was
her truck
a
and-
law professor.
I know, but he
What
is told by this
qualifies
next door
him?
neighbor says she had an old truck. And then he's driving and he
And
sees
he
an old
sees
truck.
a
Like,
truck.
God forbid there's be more than one old truck.
Right.
And he's like, oh, I should go check in that art gallery
Yeah.
and ask about, and as soon as she's there, he's like, no. So,
Right.
but then he goes to like a former, like, I guess, parolee of his and visits her at her office.
And basically blackmails her.
He's threatening a prior parolee with blackmails
outing her as a
threatening
prostitute.
to tell her
Yeah.
boss that she used to perform fellatio for money.
Yeah.
He's like,
While-
you wouldn't want your boss to know. It's like,
And he says this. He says this very loudly when there are other
to
people
get her
around.
to like. I don't know, break the law, but basically give him
Basically,
information
to
that
give him
she's not
information she's
allowed
not
to
supposed
give
to
out.
do.
I can't
Yeah.
give out personal information. She's like, well, you wouldn't want your boss. Like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Arrest this man.
Right. Man, nice try. Yeah.
Well, so then she tracks him down in New Orleans, and then Tommy Lee Jones tracks her down in New Orleans and actually starts to believe her because he meets the husband in his new form and is like, nah,
Were
this
you
dude's
guys fooled by the
shady.
driver's license picture? Because I was initially.
No, I figured.
I
that-
thought he was using an alias all along when I
I
saw the
did
Nicholas
too.
Parsons.
I mean, I
and I
thought-
go, oh my God, was he faking?
I thought it
being
could be
thought
that.
that's what I
It could
did.
be that. But I
That
also
was
thought
what I thought.
I actually thought when he called the precinct or whatever and said, I need a driver's license. Can you pull up a driver's license? And then give like a number, like not a number, a name.
A name.
I'm like, but wouldn't that yield more than one result? Because it's again,
Okay, well, clearly
Nick
you're
Parsons,
smarter than
right?
me, Diana, because I was.
No, I thought
was
the same
going
thing
down
you
the
did.
path of he used a fake name then too. Yeah.
Yeah,
I thought the same thing
But
you
then,
did.
and then so then like a different Nick Parsons.
I just figured he was a scam artist all along.
But also that
Like,
other Nick
just-
Parsons looked much older. So like
Yes.
once you get that, you're like, no, her husband wasn't like 25 years older
Right,
than her.
that
Yeah,
wasn't.
yeah,
This
yeah.
wasn't the Nick. Again, this wasn't the Nick Parsons that was killed.
Right.
Like it would have been all over the news.
The thing that really bothered me throughout the whole thing is like get one human being to look at this very prominent figure and be like, that's that guy.
That's the guy that Nancy Grace was going on about.
I mean, there, even if it wasn't like plastered all over, like look, a lot of murders don't end up JonBenet Ramsey style, like plastered
Yeah.
everywhere. But like you can't find one article that has
No,
his
this
photo
was-
in it.
No, hold on. This was the time of these like sensational murders. You had the Menendez brothers
Yeah,
earlier.
but there
You
were
had-
murders
you had-
that weren't as sensationalized.
It's true, but you had Lacey Peterson
Yeah.
was Lacey Peterson was the early 2000s.
Susan Smith.
Like there was a lot of these like spouse murders that became very sensationalized.
You're not gonna say OJ? Oh, but he didn't.
No,
do it.
OJ was different. No, OJ was
What's
different, not because he didn't do it, because well,
The glove didn't fit, Jenny. That's all I'm gonna say.
no, OJ was different. OJ was sensationalized because he was OJ,
Yeah.
right? So
he was already famous.
He was already famous, so it became a media circus because it was OJ.
But there were a lot of these, but there's also a lot that like didn't go anywhere. Because like I'll read an article being like, oh, and so who was like murder, like was convicted of murder in like
I think this would have been
the 90s.
I
of,
think
like,
this would have been
I
like
don't
the
know.
perfect like example of a sensationalized spouse story because you have a missing body. She takes him like a rich, well-to-do
Sure.
family.
I could see it
She
being
takes him out
sensationalized.
in the middle of the ocean
Yeah.
and like offs him.
Oh, God,
This
yeah.
would have been everywhere.
It would have been on Dateline in 2020
Yeah.
in a heartbeat.
100%.
And I love that stuff.
Yeah.
100%.
I could see that.
There would have been a podcast.
But I think you'd be
about it.
surprised as to how many go under the radar and don't get
Of
that
course.
same media.
Of course.
But it's not hard to find a photo of him and just be like, this is the same guy.
And okay, again, so
And she could have done the same thing.
then
She'd
her
be
whole-
like, this guy's super famous
Right.
down here in New Orleans.
Right.
This is my husband. Hey,
Right.
everyone, look
Right.
at this photo.
Right.
Like, get a camera.
She could have.
Take a picture
But
of him.
again, her motivation was, I want my kid, I will go away.
But again,
and that was it.
But again,
all
what
of this
is
was
the what is the
What's the end
theory?
goal,
Like,
then?
what's the end goal? Is she going to be on the run? She's now an escaped
She's a
parolee.
fugitive.
She's a fugitive.
Well, I
she's
think
going to
she
be on the
fig-
run with her
I think
8-year-old
she
child.
figures that she's got enough goods on him. He's not going to pull the.
Yeah, but the state wants her. Like, now it's like
and,
law
and
enforcement
again,
wants
all of
her.
those new crimes that have been committed.
True. She's going to be literally a fugitive forever if
But
she
now,
gets her son back.
but now with her son.
yeah.
So
All
what's
she had to do
doing?
was get one photo of Nick in his present position and be like, hey, everyone.
lawyer.
Hey, lawyer. You know him. This is him. He's
Yeah.
alive. And that's all. And then the lawyer can go do his lawyer stuff. Mm-hmm. You know, that's it. And get everything overturned and take care of it.
So finally, Tommy Lee Jones figures out that this is the husband, that she is innocent, and he basically helps her.
Yeah.
And he says to her, yes, Double Jeopardy is correct. And he sits there and effectively says...
And kind of basically blackmails the husband right along with her.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And granted, she doesn't come there to kill him. This is after he stuffs her in a coffin, but...
What a creepy scene. I
Super-
forgot about that scene.
Yeah.
And
I did
the
too.
fact that there's
It was
dead
super
body in
creepy.
there.
Oh,
is so
right
bad.
behind her. I was like, is this a horror
It was
movie right
awful.
now?
I
What
did not
is-
like that
super
at all.
creepy.
Yeah, that was.
I had to keep looking away. It was
that
super
was
creepy.
wild.
Oh, and also she shoots the coffin, like the
thing.
Get out.
hinges.
The
Yeah.
hinges, that's what they're called.
She'd be deaf. She is in a
And
coffin.
then straight, in an enclosed
first of all,
space.
shooting a gun without any like ear protection already,
Yeah.
like completely destroys.
But
the
it's
That's
ear.
literally
true.
right next
But
to her
she's
ears.
in an enclosed space,
Yeah.
and she's shooting from her face.
The back.
She would be
Yeah.
completely deaf at that point.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
no
She just-
hearing left.
She just stands up and walks out.
and she's like, okay, I'm
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
But she shows up and she's like, oh, hey, you tried to bury me, but I'm
wouldn't
alive.
she have recognized her kid? Like, she keeps following this kid around the cemetery, being like, Maddie.
Well,
I don't know.
It's been 6 years.
You-
and
oh
the
my
kid
God.
was little.
You would recognize your child
the
after
kid
6
looked.
years.
I don't know. The kid looked enough like him, I guess.
I don't think so.
know.
I think you'd know if that was your child or not.
He was far away too.
Yeah.
But also the fact that she was like, we're going to meet at this cemetery because there's a lot of tourists. There wasn't a single person there.
By the way, I loved the New Orleans funeral procession.
Yes.
Went
That
right
was
through
beautiful.
the thing. And I told my husband when we were watching this,
That's what
that's
you
what I
want?
want. Yeah. I want the whole thing. The wailing, the pulling my body with the thing, and woo, we're gonna walk with the umbrellas and the music.
you got it, girl. We'll
that's
take
what
care
I
of it.
want. I
You
want
got
a
it.
whole big send off with trumpets.
Do we think that? Do
Yeah.
we think that she would have? Well, first of all, let's talk about how she does end up killing Nick in the end. I mean,
Accidental-
she
well,
wasn't
accidentally
going.
on purpose.
Self-defense.
She was not
But
going. Yeah,
okay,
she was
but
not.
it's funny because originally
It
I
wasn't
thought
really.
it wasn't really self-defense because he wasn't going to shoot her.
He was going to
He was
shoot
going
him.
to shoot Tommy Lee
But
Jones.
I think that that's still
and she
a valid defense.
She shot him to protect Tommy Lee
Yeah, but I
Jones.
think I think that's still I don't think
I
she'd
mean,
be convicted
I
of.
think you would have some mitigating
Mitigation.
circumstances there, but
Yeah.
it technically wasn't self-defense because
I mean,
she
I
wasn't the
think-
one threatened.
However, I feel like the argument could probably very effectively be made that they're both being threatened.
Yeah.
And that presumably if he's turned the gun on Tommy Lee,
He's going to shoot her next.
He was aiming for
and
her.
he did
He was aiming
already
for her.
do attempted murder of
course.
her,
Yeah.
And
he got on tape.
He was aiming for her, and Tommy Lee Jones jumped in
yeah,
front.
he like
True.
shoved him. Yeah.
So I think she
You
probably
could stretch it enough.
I don't think she'd be convicted of that. I
No.
think there'd be enough circumstances where she would walk away from that just fine.
Yeah.
But like not because of double
And then,
jeopardy.
Right.
Right.
Not because of
just
double
because of the
jeopardy.
other
and
circumstances.
then
there.
Tommy Lee Jones says, "I'm going to take you back with me, but I'm going to demand a full pardon." And it's like everyone lives happily ever
Well,
after.
and also
Yeah.
I wonder after realizing that she was like falsely convicted, whether she'd have claims against like the police, like the prosecutors, like
Yes.
for like misconduct of like
No.
like failings in the justice system. You don't think that she'd
because
have any
there've been
claims for that?
there have been other
wrongly
incidences
convicted,
where
yeah.
where convictions have been overturned and people have not had that happen because you have like an immunity when you're doing stuff
because you're doing the
in-
best that you can under
you're
the
doing
circumstances.
you're doing your job pursuant to the state, so you have that immunity. So you can't sue these people
I mean,
for
I think
that.
perhaps it would also no, but maybe it would depend on how good of a job did they do. Did they test the blood on the boat? Was it actually his blood, and or maybe it wasn't his blood, but they didn't test it, and so like how good of a job did they do? And so I think maybe if they did a shitty job and they were just like,
But
she
honestly,
was there,
think about
so
it, Diana. Where's her claim really going to go? She didn't try and appeal. She didn't do any of the normal stuff that might have supported.
And she then admitted.
I mean, this would have just been, they would have just overturned the conviction.
And
She would have appealed it, and it would have been like a 2-second hearing to be like, yeah, you didn't murder him, clearly.
Right.
But again, she should have taken care of this all the way back at the beginning.
All the way at the beginning.
But again, there wouldn't
I mean,
been
the
a
legal
movie.
way.
The legal way, that's silly.
Yeah. No, why would we want to do that? So that's how it she ends up reuniting with her son. She's told that she could take the hotel. They're like, well, technically, you're still his wife.
Technically, you're still his wife.
Yeah.
Right.
So the hotel is yours, ma'am.
Is that accurate?
No, I don't think so. How is that?
That can't be right.
How is it that it like happens right away? It's like, this hotel is yours, ma'am.
You know what, though? Actually, I don't doubt that because he died. They weren't divorced.
She's the one who killed him, though.
Even if she did, it doesn't matter. It doesn't dissolve your marriage.
No, of course. But like,
they were still legally married. And even if he theoretically married Angie, it would have been...
bigamy?
Right. It would have been a false marriage anyway. It was fake names, fake everything. And he wasn't legally divorced from her.
How about the fact that he obtained all of those properties under a fake name, presumably with illegal monies? Would they seize that out of his name such that she wouldn't be entitled to it? Granted,
I mean, that's way more
well,
complicated.
because the $2 million that he's presumably
Is
starting
hers.
with is hers,
Yes.
and is is a product of insurance fraud. So it's already like fraudulently obtained.
That's
money.
true because technically he wasn't
Everything
dead.
thereafter
Does the
has been
insurance-
built on like stolen money.
Yeah.
Does the insurance pull the money back?
I think
Does the
they'd have,
insurance
like, a
say?
claim to do
So there
so.
is. Have you guys seen the story on the
In
news?
the 7th year? I don't know.
I don't know.
if they're
I
gonna.
don't know.
Have you guys seen the story on the news? This is like very recent, where a guy disappeared after he went out on a lake, and he just disappeared. And they were searching the lake. They were searching the water. He was missing. Granted, he didn't frame his wife. He just disappeared himself.
Yes.
Because he found himself a bride in where? Somewhere in Eastern Europe. I forget,
Oh my
like
God.
Czech Republic or
Really?
something. Yeah. And he fled. He fled right there.
Oh my God.
And she got she was supposed to be getting a payout of insurance money. And I was wondering whether the insurance company if they had already paid her out, if
Are
they
they
would
gonna
have pulled
ask
it
for it
from
back?
her.
I think
Because
they
she had
probably
nothing to
would.
do with it.
She did it, but he's technically not dead. Unless he got declared legally dead. I don't know.
No, I don't think they declared him legally dead because as they were searching, they want to sue him because they were and charge him because
Right.
there were so many resources that were spent on trying to find him.
Okay.
And so much money spent on trying to find him. But I'm not sure if enough time had passed once they realized it that the payout of the insurance monies happened, so that it may have been avoided in that particular scenario. But if the payout had occurred and she used it, right, completely unaware,
Right.
would the insurance company be able to pull it back, or would they go after him for it?
It's a really good
Interesting question. Anyone who has dealt with this,
If anyone is an insurance lawyer,
yes, let us know.
Join us.
I'm curious to hear because, he died. The money technically went to her and the kid.
Yeah.
So does the insurance company get to just pull it back 7 years later? They've declared him legally dead. Does that mean after 7 years they're like, the marriage is null and void? No.
Honestly, that's a question that's going to take years to figure out. And
I think it's
not
going to be
going to be in
it'll
a movie.
eventually be like on a law school exam in
Yeah.
like
I know.
insurance law class.
listen,
Right, that'll take us 2 hours
Yeah.
to try and untangle.
I think
Yeah.
as we wind this episode up, because we were so incensed about this episode, we are over an hour into it.
Yeah.
This is like the longest episode
we've
done.
ever
But there's
done.
so many legal issues.
Yes. But I think as we wrap this up, I think the moral of the story is this. If you are unhappy in your marriage, Liz and I would be happy to help you.
Oh, gosh.
Do not fake your own
Yeah.
death.
Here are some divorce lawyers you can consult with instead of murdering your husband twice.
Or framing your
However,
spouse.
let's be honest. This was not an I'm unhappy. This is an I wanted the money and I wanted to get out of my legal problems.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because he would have ended up probably in jail for embezzlement.
And threw his wife literally under the bus.
Yeah. Basically, yeah. I think the biggest moral of the story is if you're convicted of murder, you can't just go and murder that person. Again, like if you're wrongfully convicted of murder, you don't have like just free reign to go murder that person when you find them.
Guys, just
don't do it.
Just get a divorce.
Call your lawyer. Also, just call your lawyer.
Call your lawyer. Don't fake your death in a lake. If you want to have your bride in the Czech Republic, sir, ma'am, more power to you. Just divorce your spouse.
Yeah, leave a post-it that says, I'm sorry,
Liz,
I can't.
Where can they find you? Throw out your website.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. www.rcfamilylawyers.com.
And I am at www.beerslaw.com. Diana doesn't practice
Happy to
divorce
help.
law.
Practice divorce law.
Happy
so
to help.
Sorry.
But we would be happy to help.
I can just tell you not to murder your spouse twice.
We will put something in the settlement agreement that lets you have visitation with your kids while you are in the Czech Republic. Do what you got to do. Just Zoom. Don't kill your spouse.
That's it. I think that's the moral of the story.
So easy to just not fake your own death.
You see how we flipped this around for us?
So easy to not fake your own death. That's never the answer.
Gotta be honest, don't think this would work in 2025.
No.
Not even a little bit.
You think they'd be onto him.
The interwebs
The
are
internet,
so much better
I mean,
now.
the phones are pinging.
Not
like,
even
like,
a
there's
little bit
so
would
much
this guy
more.
be able to fall off the radar. Like,
Also, it's so much
way.
easier to share a photo of him.
Oh
You can
my
just
God,
throw it up onto social.
Oh my God, do you see us Googling stuff while
Oh
we're
my God.
Absolutely
The guy who disappeared in wherever he disappeared to, there was a video going around where some like YouTuber content creator was literally on the street somewhere, just like interviewing people on the street.
And found them, right?
Like randomly stopped this dude and was like, hey, like, what are your plans for the summer? And he said something to the effect of, he was like, oh, sometimes I just like dream about disappearing. And this video was making the rounds because they were like, wait, isn't that the guy who disappeared?
Right.
The internet can find anything.
It's so much. I mean, now it's so much easier. You look at like the University of Idaho murders, you know, like that happened in November 2022.
Yes,
Yeah,
with the
like-
students, the college students who
the
were murdered in their
4
home.
roommates.
Yeah.
Which is so sad. But they found the suspected murderer, the alleged murderer, because of technology. Because his phone pinged here, and then it turned off, and then it was, and he was traveling this way, and then his a cop had stopped a different car, or not. They didn't stop a different car. They were like stopped some people in the quad who were like maybe smoking or something. And in the background, you can see this guy's car
Weren't there
go by.
Ring videos, right?
Yes,
Wasn't there
yes,
Ring videos?
Ring videos.
It's
and like
impossible to hide these days.
No.
Impossible.
this would not work today.
All right, guys.
Okay, so believability?
0.
Yep. Fun legal premise?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Like an excellent thriller.
this
Amazing.
Love the thriller
I
part.
still
yeah.
love the movie, but oh my God,
But
the legal lessons.
Yeah.
Guys, we've
What a
destroyed
quagmire.
this
We
movie.
obliterated.
Ashley Judd, Tommy Lee Jones.
Love you guys. Love you
Love
guys.
you.
But
Yes.
this movie, not plausible.
No.
A little bit. So
All right. As we wrap up, we thank you guys for being here with us.
I hope you enjoyed watching us for the first time ever.
Yeah.
Please come join us again.
Yep. And follow us on Instagram for on Let's Ruin It podcast.
That's the one.
Follow us on Spotify. Subscribe on
Music.
Apple Podcasts.
Apple Podcasts.
Yeah, that's the one.
It's so much easier when I'm on a camera. And now YouTube.
Yep.
And now YouTube.
Woo-hoo!
Oh, yes.
So many options. And let us know if you have any suggestions
Yes.
or
Comments,
requests.
we welcome them all.
We will always listen to any suggestions you have of other movies we can
Yes.
ruin.
And for next week, we are going to have a romantic.
The most romantic movie of all time.
Oh.
And
Why don't you guys try to guess what it's going
guess
to be?
what movie
So
we're gonna do.
romantic.
It's the most romantic movie of all time.
Yeah. Okay.
Bye, guys. See you
Thanks,
next time.
Bye.